All right, some of you guys know that I made a mistake when I was working on these, and if you know anything about fiberglass, which I don't, I'm learning a lot on this project, but one thing you don't want to do is use oil-based stain on something that you're going to fiberglass. So there's not a whole lot of information out there on what to do if that's the case. So I did a ton of research, tried to figure out, you know, did I just ruin everything, or am I going to be able to pull this off? And so can you fiberglass over oil-based stain? And the answer is yes. And this is the result, and that's what this video is about. We're going to talk about the steps that I had to go through to get to this point. This is a nice hard surface, perfectly waterproof, bonded well all over the place. There's no delamination anywhere. So let's talk about how I got to that point. So don't make the same mistake that I made. Either no stain at all or water-based stain. So what am I going to do now? I mean, I've already built everything. It's ready to go. All I got to do now is stain it, let it dry, and assemble it. There is something that I can try, and that's what I'm going to do. First off, I need to let this completely dry for a minimum of 24 hours. It's been 24 hours, so I'm good there, and I can touch this and nothing's coming off. That's from last night. So what I want to do is I want to take mineral spirits. This says paint thinner, but it's 100% mineral spirits. And I'm going to clean the surface and get any kind of oils or anything like that off. And I have oils on my hands, so I'm going to be wearing these gloves. Then I'm going to use an oil-based urethane, and you can use polyurethane or urethane to cover that and let that dry completely for a minimum 24 hours, best case scenario 72 hours. And when you do that, epoxy, they say that epoxy will stick, it'll bond. So I really have no choice at this point, so I've got to give it a try. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, I'm starting off with this cheesecloth. This is brand new, fresh out of the package, so it's dust free. And I've dampened it with some mineral spirits. Okay, now I'm going to apply my urethane. Okay, I did take a horsehair brush to it just to make sure I got everything off. This is going to be a long process. I'll bring you guys in when I'm finished covering that. Okay, I've got that covered, and you don't want to skimp on this. You want to give it a good cover on the sides as well as the top, because you're going to be fiberglassing the whole thing. At least I am. So now I need to let this dry for minimum 24 hours, 72 if I can wait that long, before I can apply epoxy. Oh, and I also want to mention, you want to put 3 coats and do a light sanding between each coat. All right, before I get started though, I want to get my fiberglass, and I'm using chopped strand fiberglass mat, 1.5 ounce. I want to get it cut to the size before I get started, so that I've got it handy and I can just lay it on when I'm ready. And I'm going to wear an N95 mask. Okay, so I scratched it up using some sandpaper, and I'm going to wipe it all down with some mineral spirits. And they say to rough it up just so that the epoxy can have a better bond. And probably do this front face as well. Okay, I've got my fiberglass cut to size, and I'm not going to be going over the edges on the sides, but I will be going over here, and that has been rounded over. Fiberglass doesn't go over square edges like this, so you really need to make sure you've got at least a 1/4 inch round over. The more the better. I happen to have a 1/4 inch, so that's what I'm going to go with. Okay, so that looks good. Now I'm going to mix up my resin and hardener, apply my first coat of that, place the fiberglass down, and put another coat on top of that, and hope it bonds. So I guess we'll see it for the first time together.
Okay, this part's a little bit confusing. The total boat resin says that it's a 5-to-1 ratio, and the hardener says that it's 3-to-1 ratio. So which one do you use? I actually did 3-to-1 first, and that was way too hot for me. It hardened up way too quick. So then I tried 5-to-1 on another piece, and that took way too long. So ultimately what I ended up doing was going with a 4-to-1 ratio, and that seemed to be just right for me.
All right, I'm ready to apply my first coat, and I'm just going to apply it with a brush. Everything I've heard, you should apply this very liberally. Don't try to skimp. Okay, at first glance, this appears to be bonding well with the urethane that I used to cover the stain. So this might actually be successful. I think I have about 15 or 20 minutes, but having never done this before, I'm not sure how much time I have to work with this. Okay, even though I'm not going to fiberglass all of these edges, I want to go ahead and give it a coat of epoxy anyway, just as a protectant. And the reason I'm not fiberglassing the sides is these are going to be covered with a rubber gasket, and they're not going to be exposed to the weather. All right, I'm going to go ahead and place my fiberglass on, and I'll apply another coat. I'm going to go ahead and roll this though.
Okay, you see me here kind of painting on this resin, and that would probably work with other types of glass mat, but the chopped stranded mat, it's advised not to do this. Better to just kind of dollop it on and kind of glop it on. So don't follow me here on this little segment. Okay, so I got my second or top layer of resin on, and I'm using the roller to spread everything out. And you can see here just how messy working with the chop strand is. A lot of people won't work with it because of that, but and it is messy. I'm going to have to pull a couple of strands that have kind of clumped up off. But I really love the textured look that you get from the chopped strand. So for me, it's almost worth all the hassle and that you go through to lay this down. And as I went throughout this project, I did get better at this. But for now, I'll just keep going with it. And the reason that I'm using the roller, I used it on top of the glass, and I'm using it again here. And the reason is because it gets the air bubbles out, and it helps for this to fully laminate, get a good bond all the way through. Okay, at this point, I've finished rolling all of the air bubbles out. Everything seems to have bonded well. I just need to let this cure overnight. But one thing that I'm going to do in a couple of hours, once this starts to set up, but it's not fully cured yet, is what they call cold cutting. And I'll take a utility knife and I'll go around and I'll trim all of the excess around the different edges. and you just put your utility knife right up to the edge of the board, and just it cuts pretty easy. I've actually done this, and it works out well, and it really cleans up the piece that you're working on.
Okay, so I'm ready to sand this center section here. The fiberglass has cured, it's all set up, it's nicely bonded, so now I need to sand it smooth. And I'm gonna use all of this. I'm gonna wear gloves because I've already got a handful of tiny microscopic slivers. Okay, so I hit this with some 60 grit, and then I followed that up with 100 grit, and then I wiped it down with a damp cloth, and then wiped it down again with a dry lint-free cloth. So now I'm going to paint it with some universal satin paint and primer. So it's satin black.
Okay, so here's the finished product. I think it turned out great. I don't have any delamination. It bonded perfectly. And so just to recap, here are the steps. You want to take your oil-based stained surface and rough it up with sandpaper. You want to thoroughly clean it with mineral spirits to get any residue, dust, and any oil off. Then give it 3 coats of oil-based polyurethane and let it dry thoroughly and sand between layers. Then you want to rough it up one more time and clean off all the excess dust, and then you're able to apply your epoxy resin and fiberglass as normal, and it should turn out fine. So can you fiberglass over oil-based stain? Yes, you can. Just do the right steps in the right order and you'll be fine. All right, that's it for this week, so I'll talk to you guys later.